Hello, everybody. Well, it's 2026, and I thought we'd talk about the state of Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to just kind of do a brief overview of what we know about 2026, where we've also been, and what we can expect. And it's been definitely an interesting year. For those that do not know, I used to be in charge of video content and social video content for all of Dungeons and Dragons. There were a series of layoffs around June. I was part of those layoffs on the same day that Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford went on to announce that they were at Daggerheart. That all happened in the same day. It was a very intense day. I was definitely shocked by the layoff for myself because the previous year in 2025, these are public numbers. I had hit 150 million views on all social channels. It was a massive, huge record for the YouTube channel, for all social channels for video content relating to D&D. We had a series of live play shows like Baldur's Gate 3 Cast, Lego, and a bunch of other shows that did in record numbers in terms of engagement, views, all of it. So we had a really, really, really strong year. That for 2025, at the halfway mark, we were already set for the views to actually have starting to potentially eclipse 2024, which was pretty nuts because we already had a really good year. And I'm just going to make one quick adjustment as I'm talking because I'm hearing myself. I had such a strong start and I'm hearing myself, so I apologize. All right. So that's kind of how 2024 went, and 2025 again seeing really great numbers. We do know a lot of information. We got a game I'm actually really excited for. We got Warlock coming out in 2027. We've had a little bit of discourse of, and I want to give you a little kind of insight into marketing at multiple different places that I've worked previously. I know some people are concerned that they have not seen a D&D product lineup for the entire year. Understand that it's a very different space than the 2024 core rule books when we were announcing all of those. It's not unusual for companies to sometimes telegraph what they're releasing when it comes to books years in advance sometimes, and sometimes they won't announce anything until 3 months ahead of time. Video game industry can work the same way sometimes. In fact, sometimes I've seen video games launch and no one knew they existed, and they didn't start marketing them until that day. That's really rare, but it's something that has actually happened. So for those that are concerned about the future of D&D in 2026, about not seeing a roadmap of content coming out, I would not be worried, and that roadmap may still be coming out soon. And even then, it doesn't mean that books are not going to happen. We've seen Unearthed Arcana. We've seen some really positive signs. I think the Scion class that we've seen on Unearthed Arcana is exceptionally well designed. It is my favorite version of the Psionic or Scion that we've seen since second edition. I still own my Psionics handbook from second edition, and this is my favorite version. I think it's also not busted like it was in second edition as well, and there's some really smart design. We've also seen UA that's covering things like Arcane Archer and a lot of subclasses that previously existed in D&D that are getting that 2024 core rule book glow up. So the fact that we have this much Unearthed Arcana that is just floating out there that is yet to be published is a really good sign that books are in fact coming. We've seen multiple subclasses kind of tied to a lot potentially settings in the future, and I can't speak on to any of that, but obviously Unearthed Arcana is generating content. We are going to see more books in 2026 and 2027. I'm actually really optimistic right now at the state of D&D when it comes to the fact that we're going towards a more franchise model, and we may see some better tie-ins. I think where D&D has really stumbled at multiple opportunities, and we didn't necessarily see it this year, but previously, being a little bit slow, we're not looking into the future for when things were coming out, right? So we had the Descent into Avernus book that was released that we were hoping to tie into Baldur's Gate. The book came out way earlier than Baldur's Gate, and frankly, when you look at that book, not a great amount of connective tissue between Descent into Avernus, Baldur's Gate, the book, and the video game Baldur's Gate. Other than the fact that they briefly exist within Baldur's Gate at the same time, hopefully with this new franchise model with Dan Ayub, that we're going to see tighter tie-ins. The very first Stranger Things box set that we saw years and years ago, very divorced from, frankly, D&D and also the brand of Stranger Things. I still own that box set myself. I really like the aesthetic and the style of this new box set that came out. But I think under Dan Ayub and the franchise model, we're going to see a little bit more synergy between everything that's coming out right now. James Hake is a fantastic designer. He is now joining the D&D design team. Just a wonderful human being as well. And I want to reiterate, I love the D&D design team and the art team. I think they are wildly talented and intelligent people who just have an absolute passion for D&D and for making good games and good content and good art. And I know for a fact those folks work so hard, and they'd have to, because they really love the game. They love D&D. And so I know sometimes we'd like to see more content coming out on a regular basis all the time. Everyone wants more D&D. We have so much third-party content on D&D Beyond as well. But I can tell you, without breaking any kind of NDA of any kind, I'm just saying the people who design D&D work hard and are always working hard. They are absolutely doing their best. No one is ever lazy, and I don't know anyone who has a 40-hour work week. That doesn't exist, in my opinion, for those folks. Designers are constantly cranking out some really amazing stuff, and I think we're going to see really interesting things happen in 2026, and I think even more so in 2027. I am also, feel free to break up my monologue that I'm currently going on right now if you want to send me a message in chat. If you want to do a super chat and ask me anything, this is really, I thought, a really good moment now that we've gone through 2025, which admittedly was a pretty rough year for everyone concerned, to field me questions. Obviously, I'm still under like NDAs and all kinds of agreements, so I can't answer everything. But I did see a little bit of consternation about people not seeing a roadmap for 2026. And I think we've been a little bit spoiled because I've been part of these conversations, certainly, where we did tell everybody all of the books that we're coming out with well in advance in events like 1D&D. And I don't think that's bad. There's a lot of different marketing strategies when it comes to how you communicate what products are coming out. And I think I've seen success and failure on both ends, and it really depends on the audience, and it depends on what you're testing. For 2024 core rulebooks, that was a little bit more complex, right? When we're updating 5th edition, that's something you do want to telegraph ahead of time, but there's also some anxiety when it comes to doing anything like that, right? So I'm checking chat right now because I do see a lot of stuff. Thank you. Yeah, I am doing the Eldritch Lorecast every Mondays. I do want to clarify, I am not working for Ghostfire Games. I am a co-host of it. I'm not like a full-time employee of Ghostfire Games. So I'm actually very optimistic for the future of D&D. What we've seen from Unearthed Arcana is a lot of player-focused content, and we do have some new subclasses here and there. I've seen a lot of improvements to things that are personally my favorites, like when it comes to the Arcane Archer. I think there's some pretty dramatic improvements to that subclass that have been made, and clearly people are hearing the feedback on Unearthed Arcana. And your mic's a little low. Yeah, the mic resets all the time. So I think, yeah, I can tell. Yep, fixed. So and I know people get really so we've got a really great design team at D&D right now. And certainly it was an absolute blow for them to lose Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins. And that kind of calls into the question. This is another topic that's worth having. What is the identity of D&D at this point? When you look at third-party content, when you look at things like Daggerheart, when you look at the people who were driving the ship of what D&D, fundamentally is, when we say D&D, we do run into this kind of issue where it's. I have relatives that still call all soda drinks Coke, even though they're drinking Pepsi or even something that doesn't even remotely taste like Coke. They'll call it Coke, and that's kind of the Kleenex of everything, right? Like this is kind of a thing that is, I think, deeply frustrating for anyone who's like who plays Pathfinder or plays Daggerheart or plays, Dross Steel or Cosmere. Is the D&D of everything kind of comes up all the time because D&D has just become almost like a blanket term for role-playing games for general audiences and also for SEO. When you're searching for something on YouTube, you're going to see a dramatic bump if you just call something D&D just because of how the algorithm works, and not because necessarily people are searching just D&D. Even when it comes down to advertisers who are targeting audiences, they'll target D&D, and you will get actually more ad revenue if you have D&D related materials instead of like some other system. There's a weird economy to all of this. So, and yes, for those who are in chat, I like Pepsi better than Coke. I think Pepsi's amazing. It is interesting because this is kind of brought up in a video that Brenly Mulligan did about Campaign 4 of Critical Role. He's like, we have a bunch of homebrew in Campaign 4. Is it still homebrew if it's being made by Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford? Chris Perkins is irrevocably part of the bone and structure and DNA of Dungeons & Dragons, and now he's making content for Daggerheart. Same thing with Jeremy Crawford. So we have, when we see homebrew coming from these folks, and we've already seen instances of this. There's a really cool death saving throw system that is being implemented in Critical Role Campaign 4, which is still running the 2024 core rule books. But we are seeing Jeremy Crawford. He's adapting some of those subclasses that have not been adapted yet. Like when we're looking at things like the Swashbuckler, clearly they have new versions of these subclasses that Jeremy Crawford has done a redesign, him and Chris Perkins of. And we're seeing new elements that are really, really interesting. The death saving throws thing is wild when you see Campaign 4. The fact that you can, in your death saving throws, either give someone heroic inspiration or stabilize yourself in a world where everything is far more lethal and there's no resurrection magic. That's really interesting stuff. That's really great homebrew content that I wish was in D&D core rule books. I think that would be fantastic. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this idea of what's official and not official, I personally need to get over myself. Right? Sometimes you look at third-party content, but you want it to be official, and really what matters is, homebrew is official to whoever wants it to be official to you. We're not playing something like Magic the Gathering where there are set rules, right? Like that is a PvP game. Certainly D&D has rules, but there's no harm in breaking those rules and creating homebrew content because we're not trying to kill each other in these games. These are not competitive games that we're playing. I'm actually really excited about how many TTRPGs are out there right now and how much third-party content is out there right now. I think we're almost in kind of a golden era of third-party content that we've never seen before for D&D or for the tabletop industry. So another thing I would say, coming from the video game industry, I'd rather have less products coming from D&D than more, because I want those products to be really good, very well tested, incredibly well thought out. And there's always this danger with every place I've ever been, and I'm not saying this is true of Wizards of the Coast or D&D, but it's always, the typical very corporate thing to do is think more is better. And like, that's not always great. When I see a video game or anything get delayed, I'm ecstatic because that means the product will be better. So I don't know how many books we're getting in 2026, but I'm always going to hope that it's less. I know that sounds the opposite of what you would typically want to hear, but I would rather have less product knowing that we gave designers and artists the time to make something amazing than get like 4 books in 1 year. And frankly, I don't have the income to buy 4 books in 1 year. Like, I mean, I think a lot of us, like, books are expensive. I just want high quality, well thought out books. And so, am I disappointed not knowing what's coming out in 2026 in an official roadmap? No, I am not. I always love knowing. I love hearing what's going to be coming out. But I like also the confidence of knowing that, no one's grinding a game developer into the ground to make something happen. I'm really excited for the Warlock video game in 2027. It looks amazing. Certainly this is more of a kind of a cinematic experience, and we saw some gameplay, but I think that's a really nice step in the right direction. And I would like to see role-playing content coming out in conjunction with it. Imagine if Baldur's Gate 3 had come out and we had a really solid tie-in book to Baldur's Gate 3. And Descent into Avernus, I'm going to let you know, if you've opened that book, it's tangentially associated with Baldur's Gate. I think for someone who was laid off by Wizards of the Coast, I'm weirdly optimistic for the future of D&D. Coming from the D&D design team, coming from the artists, coming from the art team around it, from those products, it's a crack team of really smart, intelligent, and insanely passionate people. And again, great sign that James Hake is over there now. I'm so excited for him. It's been a long time coming for him to have a job at Wizards of the Coast. So I think the design and the future of D&D is in exceptionally good hands. And I have a lot of really positive impressions from Dan Ayub as a leader for the D&D brand, as well as John Haidt. So I am super optimistic about the future of D&D. But I also think we need to think about all the other different systems that are out there right now and give them grace and think about what is the meaning of D&D, and like things like Daggerheart. I am excited for the competition that we are seeing right now. I think that's fantastic because I think everyone's game is going to continue to go up and up and up and up. The more competition we have in the tabletop role-playing space, the better it's going to be for every single player and dungeon master, because people are just going to be at their A game. Daggerheart came out swinging with some amazing design from Rowan Hall and Spencer Stark and Matt Mercer, and now we've got Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins in the mix. I think they are one of those ones to watch. MCDM is they've got some really positive feedback. We've got another Kickstarter happening right now with some really inventive and fun settings. I think we're almost... The golden age is an interesting thing. I think we're at the golden age of third-party content for tabletop games. I think it's just going to keep on happening. And we're finding more and more new settings and more new kind of niches within this industry. But I think that's great. And certainly it's hard to learn multiple systems. And I have a super chat here I really need to pay attention to. So I'm going to just move to that real quick. So Lucas Anderson with a $5 super chat. 5e has done every classic setting except for Dark Sun, which we can assume is coming. Will they try and rehash problematic settings like Kara-Tur next? So I don't have any insights into this specific question, but it is interesting that we should always remember that second edition was a different time, and so was first edition. I think we've been in, I will say, I feel like we've been in Forgotten Realms territory for a very long time. We've got now we've got a Forgotten Realms campaign kind of setting and a player's handbook for the Forgotten Realms. I think we're all kind of craving, more diversity in our settings. So they can't not be looking at that, right? And we've seen the Unearthed Arcanas, and certainly they've hinted towards different settings. I think this is a very good moment for D&D to experiment beyond the Forgotten Realms. And Forgotten Realms is, I know, beloved by many. My personal favorite setting is probably Ravenloft. Also Planescape, which is kind of the setting of settings. I love Planescape quite a bit. I love Spelljammer, actually, quite a bit. But these are all kind of niche. If you look at the history of 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition, all these different settings are actually pretty niche. So I would love to see a completely brand new setting in D&D that is unrelated to the past. But I think it's really a good idea to kind of experiment and see about previous settings in 2nd edition, 3rd edition, even 4th edition. Dragonlance used to be one of my favorite settings, absolutely. Dragonlance is another good example. I think revisiting Dragonlance would be a fantastic idea and seeing what works there and what doesn't. But we also run into kind of the fact that fantasy has changed. There is a lot of what we call member berries. You look at the past and you kind of elevate stuff maybe a little bit beyond what works necessarily now. I remember even from a fantasy standpoint, it's pretty wild to think about riding on a dragon, holding a lance, and expecting there to be damage done in a non-bizarre way. But I have deep affection for Dragonlance. It's one of my favorite book series. I read like the prequels. I read so much Dragonlance, and I'm such a over-the-top Raceland fanboy. You don't even know. And I think, frankly, I really love the very first trilogy of Dragonlance, but I think that the Time of the Twins, the Test of the Twins, that entire the Legends trilogy is the best. I think it's single-handedly the best thing that ever came out of Dragonlance. It was the most interesting and it was the most adult. So I think revisiting the previous settings is really smart. I don't know, but I don't want it to hamper the effects to make something a little bit more modern. I think Dragonlance is a strange creature because we now live in the world of things like Game of Thrones, right? We have Game of Thrones, which, boy, we got so many dragons now, right? We are spoiled for fantasy, and fantasy has been evolving. And I hope for the future of D&D is that D&D's own fantasy evolves with it a bit. And this is why I think it's kind of a no-win situation sometimes when it comes to a brand like D&D that is so storied and so beloved, which I love clearly and I will always love, whether I'm working there or I'm not working there. I love D&D. I always will. I love Dungeons & Dragons. I think about subclasses and classes every day. I like to design homebrew all the time. I'm actually going to start publishing playtest materials myself. So it's ever on my mind. I like the Ninter Veil. I thought the Ninter Veil was really fun, and the Points of Light. Certainly Greyhawk. Yeah, we've got a little bit of Greyhawk in the new Dungeon Master's Guide. I think we're going to start seeing a momentum, and that is my hope. And I think the 2024 core rulebooks were actually a really good start. We fixed a lot of mechanical issues in the game. There were some things that were just, which were really fun, and I get that. But things like Sharpshooter feat, for example, it was busted. If you create a feat that everyone has to take, that's not fun. That's a necessary thing. It might as well be default in the game. So I think I love the 2024 core rulebooks. They really, I will say sorcerers are pretty powerful right now, but it's always going to ebb and flow. So I always have different opinions about all this stuff. But I'd love to see them revisit all of the settings of D&D and test it out. And obviously, stuff from 2nd edition has its problems. And it's going to, because it was 2nd edition. Because it was like the 80s and the 90s. Life has changed. We've changed. The culture has changed. And that's good. I want to see some changes because the things that I liked about settings like Ravenloft and all the other settings within 2nd edition wasn't all the problematic stuff. I didn't care about that stuff. Fix it. Please fix it. Like I don't want a perfect rehash of stuff from the past. That does not interest me. I want to see, like, I actually quite like the new Eberron book. I think the setting of Eberron is really fun. It would be amazing if D&D did another competition to create a new setting yet again. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it'd be amazing because then we got things from Keith Baker with Eberron. And one of the biggest contributors actually to that setting was actually James Wyatt, who currently works at D&D right now. James Wyatt is like the Eberron guy. Not everyone fully knows that, but James Wyatt has done fantastic work, and he's on the design team now. So I am excited, and I really love the revamp of the subclasses. And they listened. The one thing that's hard for D&D, not being fully in a digital space, is they can't reiterate on the digital side that much. Like, the Artificer Alchemist was busted. Right? Having to take a full action to drink an elixir, just wasn't how people played and severely hampered the class. I'd still argue that the Artificer Alchemist could use Alchemist Fire as one of the things that could improve, but that would be really fun. So, I'm sorry, checking chat. Was there an issue? I don't think there's an issue. So, yeah, what I really like to see is some new settings and some new experiments. And maybe so those experiments will be with third-party IP. What's got me weirdly excited, even despite the layoffs, is the weird thing that people do. I don't know if I've actually shared this story, is the day I got laid off was absolutely bizarre. Because I'm at work. I'm not at work. I'm at home, but I'm working. And I hear the news about Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford, and I sent them a congratulations. And then I got the news that I was laid off. And then I had ordered Daggerheart like 2 months earlier, and Amazon had not fulfilled my order, and I got Daggerheart that day. And cracked it open, and there's some really exciting stuff in Daggerheart. And that's something that's super agile. Thank you so much thank you, Agile Monk, for rolling with advantage. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being a member of the channel. Much appreciated. I think we're seeing some of that agileness in things like Daggerheart. Daggerheart is very smartly designed, and the concept of campaign frames doesn't require an entire book for a campaign setting, because I don't know about you, but personally, when it comes to settings within D&D, I use those books as kind of lore books. I enjoy reading them. I really do. But then I riff off them. I think we all do. And so I think there's some interesting stuff happening with systems like Daggerheart, where they give you a campaign frame. They're like, hey, do you like Delicious Dungeon? Well, we've got Beast Feast. This is kind of the campaign frame, mini campaign setting for people who like that genre. Here's a weird genre for do you like westerns and fighting giant monsters like the Colossus? Well, we've got that as well. This is really innovative stuff because I think so many of us don't necessarily completely absorb or process a campaign setting. I don't know everything there is to know about Forgotten Realms. I do know a lot about Dragonlance, even Taladas. The continent of Taladas, and Ansalon. I know a ton. Do you know why I know a ton? Because I'm pretty sure I read 50 books about Dragonlance. That was a golden era of fiction within D&D, and you absorb all that content in your brain. And I mean, even during 2nd edition, I was aware of things that were wrong with Dragonlance because I had read so many books from Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman that I saw the parts that didn't quite line up with the actual lore. And so we don't have really the advantage of that kind of stuff Now, where we maybe will get that is if we start seeing TV shows coming from D&D as a franchise and video games, people will have this broader awareness of what they love about D&D. Maybe it's not coming from the novels. And I actually quite like the new Ravenloft book that came out last year. But with Baldur's Gate 3, the people who play Baldur's Gate 3 have an intimate knowledge of what Baldur's Gate 3 is and kind of the surrounding areas of the Forgotten Realms. That is such a boon coming from Larian Studios to have granted us such a deep and faithful lore dive into the world of Forgotten Realms. And I could have used a book that was just about Baldur's Gate and those surrounding areas, or even a straight one-to-one module taking us through that game as a role-playing game, or maybe even an expansion of it. I would have totally done that. This is how much of a Dragonlance nerd I am. I had owned all of the modules from Dragonlance, and we played a game. We had a dungeon master, and they ran us through all those modules. It was the time of my life, and I got to play Raistlin. And I got to play Raistlin as this kind of time-traveling awareness of the future. That's how I kind of played it, because since I obviously knew where a lot of the modules were going, and certainly the modules within Dragonlance and D&D in that edition diverged from the books and necessarily had to do so. I couldn't just peace out and betray everyone to Tiamat, functionally in a D&D game at the time. But I had a deep love for that translation of those books. So I guess what I'm trying to say is certainly I want to see us to revisit all the previous campaign settings, and that's my hope in some way. Do I need a full campaign setting book? I don't know that I do. I still have a deep love for Spelljammer. I think Spelljammer can be very current to pop culture right now. I think that Dragonlance can be very current to culture right now, especially in this dark, gritty world of Dragonlance. I mean, of Game of Thrones era. I think sometimes people perceive Dragonlance as kind of this dark, gritty environment. I don't see Dragonlance that way. I think Dragonlance was very much kind of riffing off of Lord of the Rings. Certainly, it's a wartime setting, but it's still a group of friends all together, going on a quest. And it's far more lighthearted than it necessarily appears to be. I would say Lord of the Rings is even darker than Dragonlance, frankly. Certainly we have a little bit of a death count in Dragonlance, but we also have a very large group of people. There are a lot of similarities between Lord of the Rings and Dragonlance, and also Star Wars, frankly. When you look at Lord Soth is almost straight up Darth Vader, in aesthetics. So... And I actually didn't mind when we had a crossover between Dragonlance and Ravenloft. I thought that was really fun. I love the book where Lord Soth and Strahd come to blows. I thought that was super fun as well. I think there's still a huge amount of fans of Dragonlance in the previous settings within, and especially Ravenloft. Ravenloft is wildly popular and my favorite setting within D&D. I love Ravenloft. Give me all the Ravenloft all the time. I will buy every Ravenloft book. I love that setting. I fell in love with it when I was a kid, and I love it now. And the work that has been done on Ravenloft by Wes Schneider, Amanda Hammond, by Chris Perkins has been immaculate and a love letter to that world of Ravenloft. I adore it. Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft was wonderful. I loved that as well. So I'm optimistic because we have so many of the same designers still at D&D doing this stuff. Do I wish D&D was as agile as Daggerheart right now? Yeah, but they can't be because D&D has been around for so long. It has been around for 51 years. It's hard to expect them to be super agile in the way that Daggerheart can be. And that's the big advantage with Daggerheart. Daggerheart can adapt to almost any third-party IP right now they could possibly want to, if they want to. Their card system allows you to not be locked into certain keystone abilities that maybe you'll find boring down the road. You can decide, hey, yeah, you want to play kind of like a Soul Knife rogue, but maybe you don't like this keystone ability that comes up. Well, choose a different card. I think that's brilliant. I think we need to take a lot of lessons from all these different games that have come out. And this competition, I think, will be very interesting in the future. I'm seeing a lot of chat. If I don't see a super chat, it's going to be hard for me to catch up. So, May Wizards of the Coast should take a page from Critical Role and modernize their campaign worlds with a small release laying out a framework using 5e rules. I think that's valid. And why not release maybe a little mini campaign version frame of some of these older settings, but with some of these changes, and test, maybe how people feel about that. My main concern with the past of D&D or any IP intelligence property that has existed this long is you'll find a lot of different opinions, and I love all these settings, but yeah, there's a lot of there's some stuff that's just culturally not great about some things that were there because it was of a time, and maybe we don't want that here. Doesn't mean like the setting idea isn't something that isn't beloved, whether it's the story or the art style. It can be all these different things that make us happy. I think Spelljammer works a lot better now in the world with Guardians of the Galaxy, and the weirdness of Spelljammer seems more modern than it's ever been. Certainly it was always based off things like Flash Gordon and stuff, but we're kind of back to that with sci-fi. Look how broad Superman is now, and the upcoming Supergirl has been in Guardians of the Galaxy. Basically, a lot of what James Gunn does is a very Spelljammer coded in a way, I would argue. So I don't think Gothic horror is ever going to go away. I think Ravenloft's even more relevant in that way as well, because when you look at Ravenloft and the things that we see coming out right now, we're looking less at empathetic villains, and I have no problem with that. I'm getting a little tired of empathetic villains. Strahd Sarovich has no good lining in him at all. Lord Soth, zero. There's no value in who Lord Soth is as a person. He's an evil person. Like, that's just how it is. We have these movies like Nosferatu, which is so Ravenloft. It's just a monster. But however, when it comes to Frankenstein, I love what they did with Frankenstein when it comes to Guillermo del Toro's version of him in Netflix. I thought that was fantastic. I feel like we have this resurgence of really interesting, gritty, gothic horror. What I like about Frankenstein, even though the monster is not evil as he is portrayed in the book, I feel like it makes more sense that Victor Frankenstein is just a POS. Like, that is the real takeaway when it comes to that story, I feel like, especially in a modern setting. So, on top of this, we have Hope and Fear, which people in chat are talking about. Hope and Fear has some new settings that are going to be taking place. Were-Dragon, Gothic settings. We've got the Dread Domain. We've got Witch and Warlock coming out to the Dread Domain. We've got a lot to be excited for right now when it comes to Hope and Fear. This is like a very long kind of dissertation about my feelings about all of this stuff. But that's why I like having this kind of catch up, and I haven't had a good opportunity to really kind of like cement my feelings about how excited I am for the future of not only Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm excited for MCDM. I'm excited for Drawsteel. I'm excited for Cosmere. I'm excited for things that are being made by Legends of Avantris. I'm excited for things that are coming from Dungeon Dudes. I think Crooked Moon was so good. I have not had the opportunity to sit down and talk about how impressed I am with Legends of Avantris and Crooked Moon. That was one of the best Kickstarters, some of the best content I've seen in some time. They just killed it. They sent me the box set, and I didn't get to do an unboxing. I just love like the cryptids, the playable species in Crooked Moon. There's so much innovation happening in the space of whether you are third-party 5th edition type content or whether you have your own game system. I think we are spoiled, and I think Gen Con's going to be really exciting this year. I don't know that I'll be able to attend, but I'm certainly going to try. But I think this competition, and this is obviously me talking about Dungeons and Dragons, but it's hard not to talk about D&D and not talk about these other systems. I want all of these systems to do well. I don't want necessarily one system. Is D&D one of my favorites? Yes. I can tell you right now, I love D&D and I love Daggerheart. I'm pretty much 50-50. I don't even know if that's accurate. Like 50-50 is I feel like there's so much connective tissue there, obviously with Chris and Jeremy there now as well. There's some brilliant stuff with Daggerheart, and I really love what's coming out in Hope and Fear. There are some scratches that maybe didn't get itched right away that Hope and Fear fill in for Daggerheart. When you look at the monsters, when you look at some of the abilities, there's stuff that is just really resonates in Daggerheart that's related to things like the Dishonored series. You could do Claire Obscura, right? You could do so many different genres. Dark Souls, we obviously have a campaign frame. Age of Umbra is very Dark Souls coded within Daggerheart, and they're very frank about their inspirations for Daggerheart and where these campaign frames are coming from. I think that's fantastic. I got a super chat right here. I'm gonna switch over. Thank you. We got 221 people tuning in. I really appreciate that. I thought it would be me and 10 other people, actually. So, how should D&D monetize more to make Hasbro happy, but the fans also? I legit think that D&D Go phone app would kill a Monopoly Go. Oh, that would be pretty amazing. I will say, one of the things that I really was privileged to be involved in and get to play was Demio. Demio is one of those things that I remember seeing Demio come out and I was jealous. The game. You can play this game in VR or you can play on your PC or PlayStation. It came out and I loved it. And my only regret was at the time it wasn't D&D. And now we have Demio Battlemarked Dungeons and Dragons. And I love it. I love that game. It's so fun. It's really fun to jump in either with your friends or by yourself to get a little hint of D&D. Baldur's Gate 3 again. Fantastic. They really brought something new and unique with Baldur's Gate 3. I hope the same happens with Warlock. Because I love Warlocks. But I think right now we may not know what's going to happen in 2026 for D&D. And that's okay. We don't need a market necessarily 1 year out for every little thing. I think we're also in a state of extreme competition in the tabletop industry. And I think that's also great. I hope that makes everyone think out of the box more and find those niches and those itches that have not been scratched. I will always be a Dragonlance fan, always be a Ravenloft fan, and a fan of D&D. I also don't think D&D necessarily... D&D has such a very unique and set identity. For them, it doesn't make sense for them to necessarily collaborate with some other settings, with some other third-party content, right? No. Netflix and D&D, does that make sense? Absolutely. When it comes to like Stranger Things, yeah, of course. That connective tissue is there. We also, recently D&D had one of the best movies I could have ever hoped for. The directors absolutely killed it. Two wonderful human beings, by the way. And they made, Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. I know there's been it's been a weird time for D&D over the course of the years, but I'm still very positive and looking forward to the future. I also think that the future of settings like Daggerheart are exceptionally bright. Because we got news. I mean, Daggerheart, they thought they bought enough, they had basically bought enough books to essentially get ready for a full year, and they sold out within 2 weeks. That is a hunger for new games, for new ideas. And that can't only be hype. Like, for Darrington Press, for Critical Role, that's not their first attempt at making a role-playing game or a tabletop game. But Daggerheart resonated with people immediately. And it resonated with me. And the ability to shift to a genre that is kind of my vibe or how I like to play games. And certainly I've been running live play shows for a long time. I produced some of the most popular live play shows for D&D in history. But, there were other great one-shots with celebrities that existed before that. Dice Camera Action, which was run by Chris Perkins, was exceptionally popular. All kinds of other stuff. I got another super chat from Super Femi. $20. Happy 2026. I'm so happy to see that you've made a successful career in TTT RPGs. I ran into years ago at Gen Con. Oh, that's kind. First, you are a tall dude. Yes, I'm very tall. For those wondering, I'm 6'5". That is the height of Liam Neeson and Jeff Goldblum. And I think I'm taller than I'm tall as the mountain, and I'm taller than Joe Manganiello. I think Joe is 6'4". That is how tall I am. First, you are a tall dude. Second, you are spitting image of Mordenkainen. Yeah, that's why I grew my hair back. I got one too many Mordenkainen comments when I had a shaved head. So, and yeah, I do see some of the comments like, longevity is not dictated by the initial sales of a product. What I am seeing is when I look at video traffic for things like Daggerheart, continued interest. There's hype around Hope and Fear. There's legitimate hype. And they keep on saying, like Elise and Marisha, they have the saying of like, we're only just now getting started. We're just getting started. Daggerheart's only 200 days old. It's a strong showing early on. And Hope and Fear, I think, is going to cement that even more. And we'll know by the sales. But I have a sense of confidence. And that's the impression I'm getting. Even from I'm seeing ads in my feed. Just the vibe when you look at live events. I think there's a real excitement around Daggerheart. And I think Daggerheart doing well is good for D&D. I think competition is always a good thing. We get better games. When we have monopolies, whether it's a video game or anything, things can get stagnant. So my outlook for 2026 and 2027, things are going to get, I think, really great. I really do. I'm so optimistic. And I want you to understand, this is coming from someone who has no job. I am unemployed. And I am telling you, I was laid off by Wizards of the Coast, the company I loved, and D&D. And I'm still telling you, I think it's a very positive future for the brand. I think D&D is still going to be good. Do I miss that job? Totally. I miss going to work with my wife. And that was amazing. And I loved working with the D&D design team and the art team. These are fantastically kind and talented human beings. So yeah, I am still really optimistic for the future. And I mean, do you really want to know what I'm so excited about? Other than Arcane Archer being drastically improved, I think when we look at UA, we have a willingness to adapt and change when it comes to design. That's very, very quick with UA that we've been seeing. I think that's exciting. And again, I'm going to say it. I think Ben Petrozor, the designer, was very much behind the Scion. And the Scion subclass is so freaking good. It is one of my favorite things I've seen come out of D&D in a while. And they're amongst many favorite things. It's hard to choose amongst your babies what you love and what you don't. I do play favorites. I think Rime of the Frostmaiden is one of my favorite adventure settings we've gotten. Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, fantastic. Absolutely, I frickin' love that thing. And now we have the Scion class within Unearthed Arcana, and I think the design of that was absolutely brilliant and builds off of a lot of the kind of infrastructure design-wise when we look at the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer, and we look at the Soul Knife Rogue, and even the Arcane, not the Arcane Trickster, but those two Psionic classes feel right. And we've got the Psi Warrior, which is nice if you want to play a Jedi Knight as well. But I'm really excited. The thing I'm probably most excited for coming out of D&D is obviously the competition. You want me to get laser focused on one topic, Scion class looks so cool to me. That's all. I love psionics. We desperately need balanced psionics. We gotta get rid of this whole notion that psionics isn't magic, because that just breaks the game ultimately. Yeah, you can play it like it's not magic, but it needs to be affected by anti-magic cones and stuff like that. Otherwise, it's totally busted and situational at best. Hey Todd, I was happy to hear you'll be part of Eldritch Lorecast. Yeah, those folks are lovely, and I gotta tell you, there is something very I'm sure lots of people in chat right now have been laid off before, and that totally happens. It can be when your primary source of socialization is the people you work with. You get, and thank God, Megan Kenrick is my best friend and the love of my life. That has sustained me. But it's like why Lorecast is great, because I get to talk to other tabletop nerds and every Monday. And that is socialization for me. That's like taking the dog to the park. That is what it's like for me. So I'm very happy to be part of the Eldritch Lorecast. That's made me exceptionally happy. And those folks, everyone who's on the Lorecast is so nice and kind. I had such a great time guesting that one time. And so when they asked me to basically replace James Hake, which you can't do. Joey Hake is just a wonderful human being. I'm so glad he's part of the design team. And again, he's part of the reason I'm optimistic for the future. Him, just as Armand, is just a fantastic manager and a leader. Wes Schneider, wildly talented, hilarious person. They still got James Wyatt. We've got all of these other people who are still there doing the work and making great content. So I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Thank you so much for the super chats. Thank you again, Super Femi. That's huge. And we got Saf911, $5. Thank you so much as well. Hot take: Ancestral Guardian update should include both old 2014 subclass Capstone and the proposed new one. Interesting. I'll have to take a deeper look into the Ancestral Guardian. I'm never opposed to having two options when it comes to a keystone, like you choose one or the other. I think that's the strength of a lot of subclasses within D&D. And perhaps I would like to see more of that if there is enough room in a book. So look at the weird modularness of the Battlemaster fighter when it comes to maneuvers. Look at sorcerers and meta magic, and then we've got things like there are a lot of subclasses where you choose this ability or a different ability as a keystone ability, and you choose one or the other. I think that's totally valid to look at. Look at the Ancestral Guardian and say, hey, can we balance out this 2014 keystone ability? Make sure that it's comparable to the 2024 one, and maybe you get two options. The strength of something like Daggerheart right now is, you can play a rogue assassin that's currently in the Void, which is their version of an Unearthed Arcana, but you can choose different keystone abilities, and you've got them in card form. So you have a base class and subclass for the assassin that can do X amount of things, but then you have these domains. The domains within Daggerheart is card-based, and when you get to this level, you don't need to choose this very specific, only railroaded keystone ability. You can choose out of multiple different abilities at that level, very much kind of like in a feat way. So I would like to see D&D maybe, and it's a design hardship for sure to have multiple different abilities that can be a keystone ability that you have to choose one or the other. That can be hard for design. But I think it's the strength of the Daggerheart system right now that you can just swap those out. And I really like the work that was done on the starter set, a lot of which was completely led by Justice Armand, trying to make D&D simpler and quicker and easier to understand. That was a very smartly designed starter set and packed with content, maps, and all kinds of stuff, and did the card-based system. And I would like to see more attempts like that. I don't know what the success of it was, but I thought it was really smart design, and we've seen that design in Daggerheart. I think Daggerheart has a sense of the future, and that's why I think they're one of those folks to watch right now. The folks at Darrington and Daggerheart have, I feel like they have a little bit of their finger on the pulse of the future when it comes to design. And the passion I see from Rowan Hall and Spencer Stark. Years ago, I was at Gen Con. We were at a party. We were at a bar. And everyone's having a great time. Everyone's partying up. And we're sitting at a table. And Spencer and Ron are explaining Daggerheart to me. And that's what we're doing for fun. You know, everyone else is like hanging off the rafters and stuff like that. And there could have been like old-timey cowboy fights happening in the background. And they were just so excited and passionate about Daggerheart, what would become Daggerheart. I'll never forget that. That feels, it's tangible. It's exciting to see that level of passion and that ingenuity. So I feel like we're in kind of, I hope, a golden era for tabletop games. So I've been talking for an hour straight about the future of D&D. Again, I'm really optimistic for the Warlock game. I'm really hoping that's fantastic because I like Warlock stuff. Thank you so much, Mike Sims. I see you. 1103, $5 super chat. Todd Kenrick, do you ever play DL5A or do you mean 5E? That was the one that demoed for TSR at Gen Con when I was Raceland. Any comparison with Daggerheart? I didn't play Dragonlance 5A. That was the one I demoed for TSR at Gen Con. No, I didn't get a chance. Any comparison with Daggerheart right now? Is there a Dragonlance-like setting? I'm not gonna lie. I do have a very dragon-centric campaign frame I'm working on right now. For myself, homebrew. Oh, 5th Age. Oh, interesting. No. I did not get to play it. That's very interesting. I will have to check it out. And thank you so much for the super chat as well. I am actually working on a very dragon-centric... it's not Dragonlance, but I am a fan of... I'm obsessed with flying castles, and I'm obsessed with dragons. And frankly, a little bit of World War I. And that's all I can really say. But so I'm working on a campaign frame that slots in very well to Daggerheart. That I'm super passionate about. And it's a setting I've been running for 30 years, I guess, really. I've tested a lot of it on Megan, and I've used it, this campaign frame, this setting at D&D in a castle, and people seem to be pretty excited for it. So, yeah, I'm going to get that published one day. But I'm not making videos and streaming to all you folks. And by the way, thank you so much. We have 217 people in chat. I really appreciate everyone showing up and asking such great questions. Cards are just a... we got another... Gunsmoke says, cards are just a way to add, constantly put out expansions. No, I don't think so. I think cards are... so I do disagree with that. I really like the card system for a couple of reasons. One, it's very easy to onboard players and for them to understand the game very rapidly. They've even spoken publicly, both D&D and other folks, about how card-based systems are actually very easy to adopt for new players, and I think that's fantastic. On top of this, there's something in that brevity of having to keep a spell or an ability or a keystone ability to something card length. I think there's a little bit of cracking the code there. And it's not that I don't like something as long as Wish. I love stuff like that. Or really long, drawn-out spells. I love information like that, but I do worry about converting people to the game who are new. Certainly that's hard to encapsulate with something as complex as something like Wish. Oh, thank you so much, Sphere9654, for the $1.99 super chat. I see the message was redacted. Let me know if that was a mistake. That was weird. Why did it get redacted? So I do like the card-based system. I think it's... I don't think it's I think if you can keep something as simple enough to keep on a card, we're inviting new players, we're going to convert a lot more people, and there's an elegance to that, for sure. Obviously, I think cool spells that are really long sometimes are really fun for us, but there's something deeply inviting about a couple of things. Our legacy, long drawn out descriptions can sometimes be problematic when it comes to spells for learning. And also another issue that comes up is this is my hobby horse, and I'm going to stick to it. I hate spell slots. I've been a spell slot kid. I've been there since Thaco. So for like complex systems, I have forgotten until I had to teach someone the spell slots in D&D. I didn't realize how deeply confusing it is. Because I had lived with it. I've grown up with spell slots. So when you hit level 5 as a wizard and you have this X amount of level 2, level 3 spells, but you have this many that you can know and blah, 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 and blah, 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 it is silly. I wish there was a point-based system for D&D. I know those have existed. I hate spell slots. We've had a point-based system in 2014 for the core rulebooks. It was kind of busted. This is part of the reason I like Psionics back in the day, because it was a point-based system. Everyone understands mana. Everyone understands hit points. Everyone understands armor class. I hate spell slots. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. I wish we could find a way to balance things to be points. For us old school Dragonlance D&D players, yeah, great, spell slots. We get it. We know it. We look at the chart. We understand that. Me explaining spell slots to someone else, they look at me like I am insane, and I agree with them. But it's part of the legacy of D&D, and that's what happens. Sometimes you get stuck in legacy. It's no one's fault, really. It's just the expectations of the old audience and the middle audience and the new audience, and you have to make the balance of like, who do we alienate? I got a couple super chats. Todd, we got, wow, $19.99 super chat from Agile Monk 6305. Todd, I've been playing since 1974. You got one up on me. And full-time GMing since 1976. You've been GMing 1 year before I was born. And your presence all 3 years has been joyful and inspiring to our hobby and community. Thank you so much. I've actually been doing this 8 years. But I get it. Only officially at D&D for 3. And 2 of those years was contract. And before that, I was at D&D Beyond. Inspiring to our hobby and community. I believe both Gygax and Arneson would have loved your presence. Wow. You're gonna make me cry. That's very kind. I can't think of a kinder thing. Well, thank you. I hope that would be true. Luke is a great guy. Gygax's son. We got another super chat. Thank you so much. I think it's £5. Thank you, Sayer Robin. I love that WotC did the accessibility kit. I agree. I think that's fantastic. So yeah, I know, controversial opinion. I wish we had mana points. Just we gotta get past spell slots eventually. What was great and back in the day was basic D&D. Basic D&D was really, which I don't. Most people here are probably not going to remember, but there was a simpler form of D&D called basic D&D. We had a lot of great content. It eventually kind of failed. I think because basic D&D appealed to a broader audience. This has come up with like Nintendo. Think about the Nintendo in general. Hardcore audience for Nintendo. Then we had Nintendo Wii. Much broader, more casual audience. Did really great. People bought tons of Nintendo Wiis. I know this is a weird aside. So, hardcore Nintendo fan base. I was in the gaming industry. Nintendo Wii comes out. People are buying Nintendo Wiis like crazy. My mom owned a Nintendo Wii. My mom played Nintendo Wii. Then they came out with a Nintendo Wii U. The problem with the Nintendo Wii, the really deep dark secret of it, is people who bought the Nintendo Wii bought 2 games. And one of those games came with the Nintendo Wii. It was Nintendo Sports. And then they bought Super Mario Brothers, and they bought nothing else. It was kind of a mess because they made a ton of money, but they alienated their hardcore Nintendo audience. And this is the thing that everyone's constantly butting their heads against. As a IP, as a franchise that is old and storied as D&D, and this is just it's no one's fault. It's just been around forever. Um, it's so Nintendo Wii had like a crisis of faith when they made the Nintendo Wii U. No one even understood what that was or who it was for, and that was a disaster. So you always have to balance the trying to make something casually understandable and also serving the hardcore audience as well, and that is an art form. And when it comes to basic D&D, which was out back in the day, it was very successful for a while, but it fell out of favor. I think there's a couple of Wikipedia articles about this very specific topic, but a lot of great ideas came out of basic D&D, which was more accessible to a general audience. And on top of that, it's one of the first places you could play a bugbear, where you could play a goblin, where you could play all these quote-unquote monstrous species and races and stuff like that. They were ahead of their time. It was really exciting stuff that came out of basic D&D. And so would I like an even simpler version of D&D right now? Yes, I would. You know what? I'm happy playing the sidekick system. I thought was really interesting. With some of the starter sets, you had sidekicks. I think that's a really interesting way to get someone into D&D. I think that's something that potentially could be leaned into. I'm going to drink some coffee. James Herman 6483. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Wow, everyone's being very generous today. Again, I thought like 5 people were going to show up to this. Keep up the great work, Todd. You're appreciated. Now that 5e system is in the Creative Commons, do you think other systems will adopt to it, i.e. Vampire? I don't know. I can't really read the tea leaves on that. You know, D&D is a far more complex system than something like Vampire the Masquerade. I think the appeal of something like Vampire the Masquerade is right up there with West End Star Wars. If you remember West End Star Wars, that's all D6s. Very easy to understand. Hey, I put X amount of points into this ability. I roll this much dice. Elegant. Perfect. Perfection. Love it. I don't know about balance, because balance isn't really based off of the points themselves, but I think very easy for a player to understand. D10s. Vampire the Masquerade. I put X amount of points into like celerity or strength or, all my little, abilities in Vampire. Brilliant. I don't know that we need that in the Creative Commons. So I don't know if other people are going to adopt that. And it isn't necessarily in their interest to do so. I get it. Who doesn't want everything to be in the Creative Commons and be able to riff off that? But that's such a complex issue. If you are something as huge as D&D, I think that makes perfect sense. If you're someone who's new to the world and the space, and you've created a great system, I don't know if that does make a ton of sense for you necessarily. Does it help with adoption? Yeah, absolutely. But it's a slippery slope. It's something I don't know enough about. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, could we see more people join the Creative Commons? Sure. Do I think it's wise if you're starting out? I don't know. I'm not a designer. I mean, not a famous one. Thank you so much. Thank you, Steve Nez, for the $2 super chat. Basic D&D, big hearts. Thank you. I thought I was the only one who even knew about basic D&D. It's hard to kind of hunt it down because they don't necessarily always say basic D&D. If you look at Dungeon Masters Guild, you have to kind of like dig for it. And then it had very specific lettering for D&D at the time. For Dungeons & Dragons, it's different symbols and slightly changed kind of art aesthetic and stuff like that. So basic D&D, it was really fun. D6 system was great for West End Star Wars. I'm conflicted. If you don't know this about Chris Perkins was behind the D20 system for Star Wars. So I did love West End, but then the D20 system came out from Wizards of the Coast, and they had the license to Star Wars. Chris Perkins was one of the people designing stuff for Star Wars, and it was amazing. They did a great job, and that was kind of the beginning of classes and subclasses, and those were essentially prestige classes. What you might not know is that stuff actually led that kind of definition of the Sith Sorcerer and all those subclasses went on to things like Knights of the Old Republic and the Star Wars Old Republic MMO straight up converted that stuff to a video game form. So brilliant stuff came out of Star Wars, by the way. And I kind of miss it. I kind of miss Wizards having control of Star Wars. They killed it. There's some really freaking cool source books and classes and subclasses in the D20 Star Wars. I thought it was crazy good. I miss that stuff. I loved it. And I loved West End Star Wars as well. Much simpler to understand. But, you know, yeah. You got more questions? Has there been any talk about upcoming D&D adventure books? I'm curious to know if we think 2024 D&D will continue to have adventure modules in the same vein as 2014. I don't have insights into that. So I don't know. I don't have insights into that future, if you know how many adventures we're going to get or not. I don't think adventure content's ever going away. I could perceive a future where campaign settings have adventures within them, and then also adventure hooks. Do I think? Because I really like the adventure books. Like one of my favorite ones is still Curse of Strahd, fantastic, and Rime of the Frostmaiden. I love that one as well. There's a certain pressure I feel when I ran Curse of Strahd, because I thought Curse of Strahd was really well done, but you know, I want to get the adventure right. I don't give myself enough leniency, but I'm of the age where we were doing modules. So you would go to the comic book shop or the hobby shop, and you would have a very thin little adventure module you would buy, and that was enough for you to run an adventure. And I miss those days. I miss bite-sized adventures. I don't need a big fat book necessarily. I like the little small stuff, little tiny modules. I don't need but the adventure modules we got with Rime of the Frostmaiden felt more like a campaign setting practically to me, actually, and an aesthetic. That's what I liked about that. Mike Sims 1103 $2 super chat. Still use my PC name from Basic as my login. Awesome. That's awesome. Saf911 $2 super chat. Star Wars RPG was baller. I never played though. Yeah, it was great. It was great. Both versions are great, but D20 system was pretty amazing. And I still love the fact that Chris Perkins worked on that. Makes total sense. A lot of innovation came from Star Wars D20 system, from Wizards of the Coast, that led to some really great things for D&D as well. I still have a bunch of my second edition books. I am looking to downsize, actually, so it breaks my heart, but I'm thinking of like selling some of my collector's books. I have all the collector's books from. When did I get my start? When I started covering D&D from YouTube, it would have been. Oh no! Why am I not putting this together? Volo's Guide. Yeah. So I am thinking about selling all my collector's edition books, Volo's Guide on, because I frankly need to downsize, and I adore those books. They're amazing. They're in immaculate condition. I got all these great collectors of books, but y'all, I've got so many books throughout my career. I gotta downsize a little bit. I can never move those books. There's so many. And I hope I never have to move physically again. But I definitely need a downside. So I have a lot of weird little D&D collector's items I need to put up on eBay or somewhere. Or if you know anyone who buys collector's edition books, let me know. Or even regular edition books. I know, yeah, you say you'll regret it, but like I gotta let go. I have a real issue with emotional attachment to items, and I need to get over it. Another Saf911 $2 super chat. I read Star Wars RPG Sourcebook, C2C for fun. Yeah, I know. There is an element to D&D that has like a kind of a collector's mentality when it comes to players' handbooks and player options as well as adventure content, and that's very prevalent in the tabletop industry. I'm personally very aware of it. I do it. you want to have a sense that you have access to all the things that you could possibly use in D&D, and you may never play any of it. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of my D&D experience is my prep when I'm running a D&D game, and also just building characters over and over again for fun that I will never play. That's kind of like the solo game of D&D. For Dungeon Masters, it's prep, creating campaign settings, and creating adventures and sections of those adventures which maybe your players will never get to, which is very common. And for your players, it's making your characters over and over again and min-maxing and having fun. That's another type of game as well. So, yeah. I also have a book that it will make me sad to part with, but I may put up on eBay that is signed by the Baldur's Gate 3 cast members from MCM London, which I had a great time with that. So that's signed by all those folks, and that was of a time. I also have, weirdly enough, the Hand of Vecna that Neil Newbon bit as Asterion from MagicCon. I had to bring my own Hand of Vecna, and he bit it on stage. I'm sure that's of value to somebody. It's so it's super weird, and Neil Newbon's a fantastic human being. So I'm catching up on super chats. A Gralthrim Silveraxe $5 super chat, currently running against the Giants with 9 PCs who are all dwarves. That's amazing. That's really cool. That's so funny. Have I missed anyone's super chat? I'm checking. Oh, Josh? Am I missing yours? Josh David 9256. How did I miss it? Oh, yeah. Would you review other games once every 2 weeks? Oof. I don't know that I can fully absorb a game within 2 weeks. So, do I wish I had the intellectual capacity to do something like that? Absolutely. Do I think I do have the capacity? I don't. I do want to review more games. I'm going to probably be on start playing a lot more soon, trying to learn new games, because I really feel like the only way to learn is by doing, frankly. So yeah, I would love to, if I could review two games every 2 weeks, I totally would. I just don't know that I have the brain to do so. Yeah, that's my concern. I would love to, but I don't know if I have the ability to do so, especially creating video content like this and everything else. Todd Kenrick, I wonder if Peeps should do more evil party-based adventures. That's hard because evil party-based adventures are specific. I think there's no adventure you can't run like you're an evil party. I think your dungeon master or your game master should have the ability within them to adapt and turn anything into an evil campaign. I think evil campaigns are very niche. Do I like evil stuff? Yes, I do. I don't know how much of an audience there is for that. Maybe that's a good digital content thing. I think all of these industries need to be more digital adaptable in the stuff they're making. We got another super chat. Thank you so much. Bear Builds 4154. Love these live chats with you, Todd. I really wish I had you as a friend growing up. I only got into D&D 5 years ago, but I'm all in now, and it's nice to chat with like-minded people such as yourself. That's very kind. Thank you so much, Bear. I appreciate it. I wish I had a friend like myself, too. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So all I did was read D&D books on a farm in the middle of nowhere. So if you're wondering why I'm really into fantasy and a lot of nerdy stuff, is because, there was no internet. I'm out there in the field just thinking about stuff. But that's a great way to make you creative really quick. So, and there were two two channels that we could get in. What a weird time that was. Question for you, Todd. I know you do interviews where you are the interviewer. Do you accept interviews as an interviewee? I don't get asked to be interviewed very often, so I have accepted them, but I'm pretty ultra conservative about doing them. By ultra conservative, I'm not ultra conservative. I mean, I just tend not to do interviews. I don't know that I have anything worth saying, even though I'm doing a live stream right now for an hour and 22 minutes. That seems a little counterintuitive, but occasionally I've been interviewed by the press and stuff about different topics, but I prefer a lot of those insights to be handled by people who design and create D&D. Is it weird that I think that the Conquest Paladin is more compelling than evil subclass than the Oathbreaker? No, I think the Conquest Paladin is really, really dope. Oathbreaker is alright. No, I don't think it's weird at all. Vengeance Paladin, solid. Vengeance Paladin's nasty. And adaptable to multiple alignments. Hypothetical evil campaign. I can turn any campaign into an evil campaign. Again, look at Dragonlance. If I was running the Dragonlance adventure that came out a couple of years ago from D&D, and one of my players said, I want to make a deal with Techesis, the evil god of dragons, I'd be down, because that's how Techesis rolls. Techesis is willing to do a deal. So yeah, you can turn any campaign into an evil campaign. Look at Fallout. So I think that's up to the players, and you'd be surprised what you could turn into an evil campaign if you so desire with a very agile dungeon master. However, it's good to check in with your dungeon master about that type of thing and making sure all players concerned are also okay with it as well. So you don't want to necessarily go rogue. So do we have any questions about the industry that I can possibly talk about that would be helpful to everybody? I want to be of service today. I think we'll probably wrap it up in about 30 minutes, 35 minutes. I cannot believe how many people showed up for this. I really appreciate all of you. I wasn't sure I was going to do this today. It was a very busy day. I haven't had a weekend in 2 weeks. So I'm pretty excited for the weekend. I hope this has been informative. So I will have some final thoughts, but in the end, I'm very positive. I feel very positive about the future of D&D, and I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, there are some insanely talented D&D designers working on D&D right now, and you should feel excited for whatever they are working on. Wonderful art team. Absolutely lovely people. Wildly talented. Look at Eberron. Look at what just came out. Forge of the Artificer. I love that art style. Those experiments. I'm down, man. I love the aesthetic of that last Eberron book. I thought it was gorgeous. I would turn some of that art into posters and hang them in my house. I'm excited for the future. Todd Kenrick coming from so relatable. I'm from Tabasco, Mexico. The very definition of away from everywhere. Yes. So I understand all of this. I am the only one that likes this. So much in common. Yep. It's pretty hard. And I didn't even technically live in this is how much of a town I didn't live in. Our zip code changed while I was living there growing up. So we were one town on the outskirts of one town and then got rezoned to be part of another town even further away. That is how in the middle of nowhere I lived. that the government couldn't decide what town we lived in. That is old-timey cowboy shit. That is just weird. Add to that, most material was in English. Yeah, that can be very alienating. And in Mexico, English is not the main language. Yeah, that's rough. I agree. And it's D&D. So I was actually just watching the State of Magic the Gathering, and there was this interesting through line that Magic the Gathering used to have before they had different designs for art, and I'm really excited for all. I love Magic the Gathering art and having different types of different cards having so much art. I think it's one of the biggest things I love about Magic the Gathering. But it was interesting when Magic the Gathering first came out. The weird thing they found out, they first translated Magic the Gathering to Italian, and then they went to Lucca, the comic festival, and they found that everyone could play Magic the Gathering together because everyone knew the artwork for Magic the Gathering. So everyone knew what Lightning was. They didn't need to read it. So if you were in English, if you only knew English and you were playing with someone who was Italian, and there was no crossover for the language barrier, you could still play because you knew what Lightning did based off the art. You didn't need to read their card to believe them. I think that's very compelling and interesting. Now, do I want Magic the Gathering to only have one piece of art per card? No, I don't. I actually love Secret Lair and stuff like that, but that's just me. Todd, just like your favorite, I don't want to talk about the Aarakocra. someone's a deep cut right now in chat. I hate the Aarakocra. We appreciate that you are flying around, spreading gaming news and positivity to the masses. But I'm not going to say about the Aarakocra. First off, I hate saying Aarakocra. It sounds like okra, and I hate okra. I hate okra because it's a southern fried dish, and it looks deceptively like fried potatoes. And if you crunch into a piece of okra and you think it's a fried potato as a kid, it will scar you for life. And that's why I don't like Aarakocra, unless they look like crows. I like Jonathan. I love Jonathan from Honor Among Thieves. How about that? I'll throw you a bone. This is the big insightful stuff you get in the last 30 minutes of a stream, everybody. I hope this was informative. It's I really am genuinely shocked that this many people showed up. Maybe I'll try to do more streams like that. Yeah, Aarakocra is yeah, okra is gross. I just don't like it. I have a lot of family from the South, so those Southern dishes sneak in there. What's the other thing? What's the salad? It's not salad. What's the Jell-O with marshmallows in it? Man, it's like a lot. There's a lot of Depression era food handed down. If your family is from down there, you get some weird foods, man. Hi, I just want to say I've been following you and your videos and your channel, and I love the way you approach interviews and keep it up, casual. Godspeed. Thank you so much. That's very kind. Yeah, it's slimy. Okra is weirdly slimy. We need more Jonathan. Yes, I agree. I love Jonathan. God, I gotta tell you, Honor Among Thieves. Freaking good movie, man. Justice for Jonathan. I agree. God, you know what? I think I'm ready. I watched. The tragedy is, my wife Megan wasn't working on Wizards of the Coast yet, so I got to watch Honor Among Thieves, and I actually have had a lot of back and forth with the directors of Honor Among Thieves, and big fan of theirs from Game Night, and we actually started DMing each other about D&D stuff and all those other things. But I got to see it as a Wizards of the Coast employee. I got to see Honor Among Thieves early. And then I went to London. And then my wife actually got sick in London. And I was going to one of the premieres there for Honor Among Thieves. And I couldn't take her because she was sick. And then it took it like 3 or 4 times of me going to Honor Among Thieves for Megan to finally get to go see this freaking movie. It was so funny. I felt so bad. Worst traveling luck. My poor wife. The worst traveling luck sometimes. But Honor Among Thieves, fantastic. That's another good thing, example of something that when you look at what Dan Ayub is talking about for the franchise model for D&D, looking at like a more holistic scope of everything coming out, whether it's video games, whether it's movies or TV shows, trying to find some alignment there and opportunity is something we're deeply missing because we've not had it. And it's really hard to do. Listen, like, it takes at least 6 months, if not a full year, to come out with a book. That is not adaptable. So a video game takes multiple years to come out, 3 to 5 years. It's so hard to align these different products. Can 2 to 3 years for a movie. It's really hard to get everything to synergize to one moment. It takes a lot of discipline, especially when you have teams that maybe aren't massive. So if you want Honor Among Thieves book to come out when the movie comes out, that's hard. When you want a Baldur's Gate 3 book to come out when Baldur's Gate 3, the video game, comes out, that's hard. Have I ever read any of the Drizzt books? I have. And I have met Salvatore multiple times. Yes. Honor Among Thieves is a home run. It is a fantastic film. Do we have any other questions? We got about 17 minutes left. And a huge thank you again to everybody here. Thank you for the super chats. That really supports the video channel and everything we're trying to do here. By we, I mean me. I say this royal we still. It's hard for me not to do so. If you take anything away from this, if you ever talk to a D&D designer, be kind. They're talented. They're killing it. I'm super proud of all of them. Not in kind of a condescending way because they know more about design than I will ever know. But again, really fun people to work with. I genuinely miss seeing them every day. That D&D design team and our team, just a fantastic group of people. Same thing with Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins. And I can say the same about the Darrington Press crew, who the people I've spent time with over there, whether I've been interviewing them or hanging out with them at conventions. What an amazing, passionate, talented, wildly talented group of human beings. I'm truly lucky to ever get the chance to interview anyone. So the fact that Darrington Press or anyone has made time for me to interview them is fantastic. And I'm very focused on interviews with Daggerheart right now. Still doing D&D interviews here and there, certainly. But I really like the story of Daggerheart right now. They're up and coming, scrappy folks. And there's just there's this spark in their eye that is really, really fun to watch. Yeah. I like the purity of game designers. There's something there. Are there any new subclasses that you would like to see from D&D in the future? It's an interesting question. I love archery. So I'm really excited for the Arcane Archer. I still think the best archer in D&D is still hands down the Warlock, Pact of the Fae, not Pact of the Fae. Archfey Warlock, Pact of the Blade, Longbow +1, which you can make in like 10 days. Back to your DM. If you have a +1 longbow, you don't need improved Pact of the Blade or anything like that. And then you're able to teleport around the battlefield, Misty Step constantly. You're constantly getting ranged, moving yourself at range, shooting someone with arrow. Then you have Eldritch Smite. So best archer in the D&D game, hands down, is the Archfey Warlock. That said, I really like the Arcane Archer as the fighter. I know people want Ranger to be the archer class of D&D. I think there's a little bit lost in translation when it comes to Rangers and how we view them in terms of kind of being the melee version of Druids, more nature-oriented. I like the idea of someone who's just making weird ammunition with Arcane Archer. Like the fact that you are got a little bit of magic is always fun for a Gish. So Arcane Archer is a concept I really like. If I was playing an Archer long-term, I'd play Archfey Warlock. So, I don't know. Yeah, so subclass, I'm really heart of hearts. Love the Arcane Archer. We saw some of the early concepts coming. Bladesinger was in the original Elven Handbook, 2nd edition. I still have that. Bladesinger came out of that. There were a lot of trick arrows that were introduced and ideas of casting spells on different arrows. Like the fact you cast darkness on arrow and shoot at the enemy. Very smart. That was in that book. I love the Elven Handbook in second edition. It was absolutely amazing. How about D&D interviews about third-party content? Yeah, absolutely. I'm down to do that stuff. It's hard for me to get around to go to conventions, and there's only so much time in the day, so I try, and I may start up a weekly live show where we conduct interviews like that. So I do love Artificers. Do you think they will ever become a main core class? I don't. I think they're pretty situational at the moment. If they did, that would be 10 years from now, 5 years from now, if they became a main class. That's a lot of classes. Maybe 5 years now, 5 years from now, the Artificer could become a main one. There's some really cool utility with Arcane Archer, by the way. That's non-combat, so that's really fun. My favorite Artificer is the Armorer. I think it's brilliant. I love tanks. Super fun. I got to play an Armorer for quite some time, and that might be my favorite subclass in the game. There's something deeply fun about playing a tank in D&D. Again, very compelling. I don't necessarily like playing. I like the idea of being in a suit of armor and getting the crap kicked out of you. That's really weird. But I always think about Iron Man and all the times Iron Man's just gotten the crap kicked out of him. I think Armor Artificer is really fun. You know, World Tree Barbarian, another great tank. I think it's neck and neck, though. I think the Armor Artificer might be better than even the. Certainly, World Tree Barbarian is a very strong passive tank. New Cartographer is really fun as well. I like teleporters. Sorcerer is a lot of work. Sorcerer, Wild Mage. It's between Sorcerer, Wild Mage, Wild Magic Sorcery, and Aberrant Mind Sorcery is a close second because that's really strong. And then I really like Artificer Armorer and Fey Warlock. We got so many wizards. We're drowning in wizard subclasses. We got so many. I'm looking forward to the Necromancer, though. Necromancer looks really cool. So got about 20 minutes. I'm starting to lose my voice. I've been doing a lot of live streams lately. I kind of did the State of Critical Role yesterday, so I gotta get better. I gotta get a better voice box. But thank you so many people for joining the stream. Yeah, I often hear people talk about dragon-themed warlock. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting. It's an interesting problem because you already have the Draconic Soul Sorcerer, and it's inevitable overlap. Does it make sense to have a patron who is a dragon? Of course, yeah. I think we've seen some stuff in UA that could be used that way, where you're very much the spokesperson for an entity. I think there is a warlock like that in the UA right now. So you can adapt that to be a dragon, I think. Yeah, by the way, if people start ducking out, have a great weekend. Thank you so much. I think we're going to try to hang out here another 20 minutes, certainly 15. So if anyone has any final questions or thoughts, I hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. If not, I apologize. That's my failing. I thought it'd be a fun stream to do. 230 people, a lot more than I thought were going to show up, so I'm thankful that I did it. Dragon theme Warlock makes a lot of sense. I do have to agree, though. And I've looked at a dragon-themed Warlock for my setting. Personal setting for a bunch of narrative reasons. So it's not like that's not established in things like Dragonheart. It's Dragonheart, right? Man, that's an old movie. Where the guy has the heart of a dragon inside of him, I believe. Something like that. Are my interviews going to conflict with my time at Eldritch Lorecast? I'm just a host at Eldritch Lorecast, so my interviews will not conflict. And what a great crew of people. I'm always worried I'm talking too much on that show. But check out the Eldritch Lorecast every Monday. It's on Twitch, and then you get VOD on YouTube as well. Yeah, I hope everyone has a Happy New Year. Ty Kenrick, do you have a favorite third-party published... I gotta change this thing so I can read the full message. Third-party published D&D book. Oh, I don't know that I have a favorite one, but I really like Crooked Moon by Legends of Evantris. So, I love it. It's really good. Check out Legends of Evantris, Crooked Moon. Really solid stuff. Really well thought out. Fun art, fun concepts. Very cryptid, very creepy. Dungeons of Drakkenheim, really solid stuff too. You should check all that stuff out. Regular lister of the Lorecast, does your setup with a full-time gig, or is it just one with additional... I am just a co-host of the Lorecast. It is not a full-time job. Todd, are you in contact with any of the D&D Beyond peeps? I wonder if the site will start getting updates anytime soon. I can't speak to that. I think it is inevitable that D&D Beyond as a website improves. Prior to ownership from Wizards of the Coast, D&D Beyond did not update. D&D Beyond, I would say, hit a stalling point from my perspective, even when it was at Curse, and then when it was at Fandom as well. I actually think it's good for the future of D&D Beyond that they are owned by Wizards of the Coast, because they have a vested interest in it improving. We love your voice so much. Thanks you for talking too much. No such thing as talking too much. Oh, okay. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I have a bunch of alt books. I don't know how I'm going to sell them. I will try to find a way. The problem is it's hard to ship heavy books. And I think it would be a little exhausting selling them one by one, so I may have to find like a third-party seller to send them to. But I got a lot of clutter in my life in terms of gaming stuff, and I need more space. I could not, if I ever had to move into a 2-bedroom place, one and a half of those rooms would just be books. So, unless Wizards shuts D&D Beyond down in 5 years like they did they won't do that. No. I know what that you're referencing. It was a weird problem that we had. I remember the old system for what was it for 4th edition? There's a digital version. That's gonna D&D Beyond is a great hub for D&D. So there are no fears of that. No way. D&D Beyond is too good of a portal for D&D content and third-party content, and it will only grow and improve. Really smart engineers right there, and they've done really great work on the maps for D&D Beyond as well. So I am very optimistic for the future of D&D Beyond. We've seen so many improvements on D&D Beyond, and I think those will just increase. Do you think there's any chance of buying a physical D&D book will also get you a digital version from D&D Beyond? That's so hard. It's really hard to do logistically, because if you create a book in D&D and you have like a code within that book, someone's going to steal that code and open it up and get the digital version of your book. It's prohibitively expensive to shrink wrap a D&D book and send it to a hobby store. That's too expensive. And again, someone can just slit that open and get the code at the store. There's not a real good solution for this. I know everyone wishes, like, hey, if I buy the physical book, I get a digital version. There are bundles like that on D&D Beyond where you buy them all at once like that. But if you mean going into a hobby store and getting a digital version, things have been explored, like having a card that you get from the front desk of a hobby store when you buy the physical book, then they give you a digital card. Also wildly cost prohibitive. So there's not a great solution. Everyone's trying to crack that idea, by the way, and I was part of the folks trying to figure it out. So it's really, really tough, though. I don't know how MCM does it. That's a hard thing to do at scale. So do they I think that's a different problem. I highly recommend the throat coat or throat. Oh yeah, I use throat coat. Yeah, I know. Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've run into this problem before. I know I drink that tea. Yeah. It's a thing. It's a occupational hazard. Yeah, they do for digital goods. For things like Xbox and stuff like that. Absolutely. Is D&D at the scale of a video game that you would buy for Xbox? No. It's not. Why put the code in the book? Why not register the book and get the code digitally? Because anyone who could take a scan of that book and register it digitally that way. Super easy. So yeah, exactly. MCADM pulls this off because they almost exclusively sell off their website. That is the answer to your question. I know. Listen, I'm one of the founding members of D&D Beyond. This is the thing we were trying to crack. There is no good way. So, you have to either exclusively sell from your website, otherwise there is no solution. And yeah, if you buy something from the website like we do, well, I say we like I still work at D&D. It's going to take me a long time to not feel that way because I've been at D&D Beyond, and then I went to D&D as a contractor. I was only officially a Wizards of the Coast employee for 1 year until I was laid off. Oh, Larry Elmore and Jeff Easley, so talented. Clyde Caldwell, also super talented, amazing folks. I also have the late Parkinson's art of Lord Soth's Charge. I have Caldwell's Strahd von Zarovich. Original Ravenloft art framed, and then below that I have a version where my wife Megan killed Strahd and took over Ravenloft, and so I have identical art to Clyde Caldwell's original Ravenloft art, but with my wife's character Whittle, who is a vampire gnome, in the exact spot, and it's hilarious. Both paintings are side by side, and I love those things. I gifted her that. I also gifted her some amazing art from Nikki Dawes of her dropping a Trask on Asmodeus, and it is glorious. This is a nerdy ass house, I gotta tell you. So, yeah. The voice is getting low, guys. All right. If there's not any more super chats or gift subs or anything, I appreciate everyone who did. If there's no other pressing matters, I think my voice is finally giving out. We're kind of 8 minutes till the top of the hour. So let me know if you have any other questions. Thank you for showing up. It's very kind of inspiring. What a great way to jump into the weekend, by the way. For this little state of the union, state of the D&D, state of Faerun, state of the prime material plane talk for D&D. Ooh, a lot of messages too. Thank you so much, everybody. Well, Night of the Black Rose is awesome. Spectre was weird. Spectre is weird because they're trying to get Lord Soth out of Ravenloft. I don't have all the insights into the Night of the Rose issue and Spectre, but very much felt like my perspective at the time that the Night of the Black Rose, they got Lord Soth in there and he was going to be a permanent part of Ravenloft, and I don't think the original creators loved that. That's speculation. I've never asked Margot Weiss or Tracy Hickman about it, and I agree. Spectre was a weird follow-up book where Lord Soth leaves Ravenloft. Now, do I love Sithicus in Ravenloft? I do. Sithicus was cool, and it's referenced in Van Richten's guide to Ravenloft as well. And I would love to see Sithicus have some type of return because Sithicus was cool. I love Sithicus. Stay of Haven might need watering. Yeah. Yeah, we're getting very podcasty and deep voiced. Yeah. Anyways, Sithicus was cool. There was a module for Sithicus, by the way, and I think you can buy on the Dungeon Masters Guild. Thank goodness for the Dungeon Masters Guild for preserving so much history of D&D there. All right, everybody. Well, I'm gonna throw up. The stream is ending. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support. Thank you for the super chats. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave comments. I hope this was informative. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you so much.